Welcome to Shift, a college admissions ACT, SAT, and CLT podcast for a changing world. I'm Tyler, the founder of Achievable, and we have affordable ACT, CLT, and SAT courses that include everything you need to ace your exam. A full textbook, tons of review questions backed by our memory enhancing algorithm, videos on key topics, a built in study planner, and full length practice exams. You can get a free trial by going to achievable.me, and if you like it, be sure to use the code podcast to get 10% off at checkout. Now, let's get started. Today we've got Casey Vaughan from Northeastern with us. And Casey, I'd love if you could introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, Tyler. Thanks for having me. Casey Vaughan here. My day job, I work at Northeastern University. I work there as the Military Outreach Assistant Director. I was former military. I served in the Air Force when I was younger, back in 2014. My background was in mental health for the first 10 years of my career, and then I had pivoted through education, used my own educational benefits that the military provided after I earned those, and found Northeastern, and I've been with them ever since. I'm going on my 7th year with them, and I love what I do. I love helping people find degrees, find the right one for them, essentially this wayfinding. I wrote my dissertation on the topic and just love working with students and military.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, today we're going to be talking really about something near and dear to your heart, right? Which is how veterans can make colleges work for them. You know, in our prep call, one of the things that came up a lot was that there are some pretty unique challenges that military affiliated
Yes.
students have to go through. Can you maybe talk us through that and just like setting the stage for the rest of the conversation?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I think one thing that stood out is that military affiliated students, they often enter college with different life experiences than the traditional student. Traditional, I'm meaning like the 18 or 19-year-old leaving their caregiver or parents home for the first time and having that traditional college experience living in the dorms. With military affiliated, they might be older, they might be supporting their families, they're working full time, so adjusting to academic life with navigating benefits like the GI Bill or feeling culturally disconnected from their peers can create challenges. So one thing that I saw at Northeastern is that we meet students exactly where they are by offering flexible learning options, tailored academic advising, and supportive military aligned community that helps bridge some of those gaps. So they're not feeling alone, they're feeling supported, they're feeling connected, having that camaraderie. Definitely one thing that I miss leaving the Air Force is the people. So having that connection point for them has been incredibly beneficial for them and all the other students that are part of that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that in particular, there's, the challenge around essentially like coursework, right? I mean,
Mhm.
college is very expensive, and I mean, this is a broad assumption, but I think that in general, a lot of the people that are going to be coming from the military to go to college are going to probably be taking out student loans for that, right?
Mhm.
So there's certainly a pretty strong incentive for people to figure out how to reduce their course load, right? Because, arguably,
Mhm.
if you're paying so much for a semester and every semester you can take 5 classes, every class you can, check a box for will save you
Mhm.
quite a bit of money. So how can you basically get course credit or academic credit
Yeah.
for what you already have been doing in the military?
Sure. Good question. And it's a good question that we often get asked. So, military experience is incredibly valuable and we treat it as such. So, with my employer specifically, they evaluate military training through the Joint Service Transcript, JST, or CCAF, Community College of the Air Force. So, JST is for any other branch other than Air Force, and then Air Force has their own, which is CCAF, and then they apply prior learning assessments, PLAs, to award academic credit. So essentially, you get all of this before you are enrolling. That way, you can make a educated decision on if you're going to be coming to this university. I always encourage veterans to start early, submit their transcripts, speak with a dedicated military advisor, and just be proactive in advocating for your experience, because essentially we want to accelerate your path, not delay it. And a lot of service members and veterans don't realize that they can advocate for themselves. So let's just say, so for me, from my experiences, I did my MBA while I was in the Air Force. I used tuition assistance in those benefits. And then I graduated, got out, came to Northeastern, became a student of Northeastern, and did the Doctor of Education. And when I saw in that curriculum, the Doctor of Education, they actually wanted me to have two classes in business. And I asked my academic advisor if I could put in a formal request to apply classes that I had already taken for my MBA into my gaining college and the gaining degree. And because I advocated for myself, because it met the criteria, I was able to get one or two classes. So you can advocate
It's
for
great.
yourself. A lot of people don't do that. You absolutely can advocate for yourself.
Yeah, well, and I think it's not just advocating for yourself, it's just learning how to navigate this like college credit
Yeah.
system. Because essentially you already have done a lot more than a lot of people to learn, right?
Mhm.
And like already kind of have a head start compared to a lot of college students that are, like you said, just leaving home for the first time.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so tell me a bit more also then about when you're going into school. Usually it's after you already are kind of have been living a full life, right? So it's almost
Right.
like if somebody was going back to school in sort of their mid 20s, and sometimes you might even have a family, or at least you have, a partner at home, and you might even have also a job that you got coming out of the military. How do you recommend that veterans keep a handle on all this, and
Sure.
what strategies do you have for them to kind of stay on top of it, but also get the most out of their college experience?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So it's one that I practice daily and still am trying to master, as I work 9 to 5, right? I was a student, because of COVID, stay-at-home mom now because the kids are home trying to learn, which was chaotic because 'cause they're little. I would say it's time management. Time management is key, being organized, but just knowing that you're not alone in this space. And there's a lot of good colleges out there that have asynchronous classes, online coursework. So you can really leverage those and choose programs with hybrid options, tap into your student support services early. Don't wait until the last minute or when something's due, right? You want to get in there early, make yourself known, and figure out how those services can help you. I know at Northeastern specifically, they offered, when I was going to school there, they offered me military specific advising, career coaching, tutoring, and even emergency financial aid if you need. They really, to me as a student, because I was a student at Liberty as well for my MBA when I was in the Air Force, and both schools I thought really excelled in building a support system, other vets, introducing you to them, both personally and institutionally. It can make all the difference.
Are there specific tactics that you've seen people do that you recommend? I mean, I definitely think the things you mentioned are options. I'm just wondering if there's even more specific things that are best for military people.
Yeah. So one thing that a lot of colleges have is the Student Veterans Organization. So I sat on at Northeastern, they were meeting when I was a student. They would meet once a month, and there was a vet who had wrote a book, and he brought his book to this meet, and it was after, dinner time, so it didn't really conflict with your day coursework or kind of your family life. You could fit it in, and he spoke about how he wrote it and if anyone else was interested, and gave them whole timelines of how you would go about writing a book. And I just remember that that was like 6 years ago, and I'm still talking about it now. It was so memorable, and that was just one meeting of a community and a very specific niche topic of writing a book and becoming an author. How do you sell it? Like, once you do write it, how do you make profit off of it? So he had all of this just knowledge that was gold, and he's willing to share it for free, no gatekeeping. And that was such a really cool experience.
Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, I think it's also just shows how important it is to have the support of other people who've been there before, and then also have the support of your community, right? Like people that understand you. And, maybe third, right? The importance of having a plan.
Hmm.
And like having something to go off of, right? Are there degree plans for military veterans? I don't know who they're provided by, maybe, but I'm curious if stuff like that exists. Or maybe even advice you have for if a military veteran wanted to build a degree plan, how they would go about it, right? Especially because oftentimes it's like whack-a-mole with what credits you already have and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there are plenty of people in place that work within the higher ed ecosystem that touch a student in different points in their admissions journey. So usually the first step is you would speak with a recruiter. These are people like me who you'd meet out in the field who can just share all of our knowledge. And we have to know a lot about a little. So we'll talk about healthcare programs, we'll talk about business school, we'll talk about law school, etc., and see what really ignites a person. Then they'll say, well, the healthcare sounds pretty interesting. What programs do you have in that? We'll go through that whole spiel. And then eventually, throughout that conversation, organically, we'll come to a program that both excites them. Maybe they have experience in healthcare. Maybe they are already studying to be a nurse and they want to look in the future for med school or PA or nurse practitioner, anything. So then through that conversation, we're able to connect them with the next appropriate person at the university who can then speak to the breadth of that academic program, get them connected with that person who then can speak further of what a recruiter could because they have that technical knowledge base to be able to articulate the program and what their day-to-day life would look like. Then usually they send them off to an enrollment counselor or coach to then coach them through the entire process once they know what program they want to go for. So they help them with personal statements, resume, the application, getting the letters of recommendation. They make sure that they're making steps every day towards the goal of applying. They keep their toes to the fire on when deadlines are due, when the whole application is due. And then eventually, after the application is done, they will usually get an enrollment decision within 2 weeks. That would be emailed to the student, and then there's next steps in that email of who next in the university they would connect with, whether that be usually academic advising. Usually if they're transferring any credit, it would be those transfer team that you're talking about, Tyler, of where they would see and visualize their transfer credit award and then therefore their degree audit, two terms that we use in higher education. So the TCA, transfer credit award, is just credit that the university is accepting. But then what's most important for the student is then to see, okay, you've accepted this, but how are you actually applying it to my curriculum to then
Hmm.
answer the question of how many classes do I have left to take, right? So that's the degree audit. So there's two really important pieces for a student to receive from the university to then make an educated decision of, okay, Northeastern's the place for me, or Auburn's the place for me, based on what they're accepting and how they're going to apply it and the support that they've been given, just like I walked through. So I think all of that matters. And it certainly matters from a military standpoint, where if you have credit, you want to know where that credit's going and how quickly you can get a degree because you've already spent a lot of time, right, on
Hmm.
educating yourself and training.
Right. Like you said, it kind of ties everything together, and I think there's a lot of really good resources out there, and I feel like maybe not everybody takes advantage of them. So that's great. And I'm curious, like maybe if you wanted to share some examples, like success stories or things that, military members where they have been able to take advantage of these systems and of the fact that they can have, quite a bit of their college requirements or academic credits accounted for
Mhm.
already.
Yeah, I can think of a couple where one, he said, "I'm too old for college," right? He's in his 30s. I'm like, "Watch it." I know I'm in my 30s and I'm a professional student at this point. I love learning. I'll probably always stay in in the college realm, always take a course here or there. But he honestly thought he was too old for college and I said, "No, it's so different now. Especially grad school. You see nothing but
Hmm.
30 and 40-year-olds, sometimes 50 and 60-year-olds. It's just anyone who has a willingness to learn can learn, and the door is certainly open for those folks." So he had a lot of military experience. He was a person who was in for 15 years on the enlisted side, and he was looking to transfer over on the officer side. To get very specific, this individual was looking at the ROTC program. So it was called the Green to Gold program through the Army, where essentially the Army will allow you to get out of your unit. And if you get accepted to a undergrad or grad school, you have to complete. Now you already have to have college credit. You have to have at least half of your coursework done to be eligible for this program, Green to Gold. But essentially they allow you to stop your service. Well, if you do the active duty option, you don't have to stop service. You could still be in the service, have your PCS orders to that university, and you can pursue your undergrad or grad degree, get it, and then you would commission as an officer thereafter. So this individual, because he said he was too old, which we debunked that he was not. He said, "Well, there's no way in heck the Army would allow me to go because I'm old. I need a age waiver," which we got. "I need a command waiver to let me go, all these things. And I need the university to accept a lot of my military credit. That way I'm even eligible." All good.
It all happened, yeah.
We got through all of those kind of walls that he had put up in his head that he thought, "No way in heck." So he got it, and I remember on graduation day, he shook my hand, and it almost made me tear up. So that was one of, I guess, the most memorable experiences I had, and just something that really stood out, that you're just actually making a difference and helping people is so rewarding.
Yeah. Well, and it's like you said, I think that it's really easy to look at these kind of blockers like in your college path and saying, yeah, this is impossible, right? Or, oh, like, I would be too old for this or whatever it is. Like, there's a lot of reasons why it's easy to think it won't work, but it can work and it just requires like a little bit of elbow grease, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I also want to talk about is, this sort of option that I've heard about emerging a little bit more, which is this idea of the College of Professional Studies. Can you talk about that and why it makes sense for military members?
Yeah, sure. So I think any university now will have a global online learning component. So at Northeastern specifically, the College of Professional Studies is a school that is under Northeastern. So when you graduate from there, you still get your degree from Northeastern, but they have hybrid online and in-person classes. So that's just gold when we're talking about military affiliated or any like working professional, honestly, someone who's already out in the field working and they just need that extra flexibility. So I started as a CPS online student, right? And then we got orders to California. So we were no longer living in Boston. The school allowed me that next semester to apply for, or not apply, register rather, for online classes, and it was a seamless, not even transition. It was just very seamless, no break in my academic journey. So the College of Professional Studies really works great for the working professional, the spouse, the service member, the vet. If you decide that you're gonna, I don't know, maybe live in the Boston area or one of our global campuses, Miami, DC, Seattle, California, they can study anywhere as long as their program is offered there. But yeah, it's all about convenience. And that's all that school
Right.
is.
Yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, thinking about like commutes, right? Something we were talking about before this call started. They're just a lot of sunk time that you don't really get back and you don't really get a lot out of. So it's a nice option to be able to avoid that.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah,
gives you
totally.
some flexibility also about like you don't have to go to a school within, call it 50 miles of your job. You can do
hmm
something else.
Yeah, I wouldn't have dreamed of doing it like as a military spouse when I got out of the Air Force and it was my husband then sending us all over. I mean, we were moving every 2 years. So
Right.
life was hectic already. And just having to travel to a university would have honestly just been a thorn in my side on top of the already academic, rigorous material that you have to go through. And kids, right? On top of all of that. So I love my kids,
Mhm.
but they are exhausting in a good way. They're very energetic. So, yes, there are definitely great schools out there that offer this flexibility.
Yeah. Great. Do you have any other comments or things that I haven't mentioned yet that you wanted to make sure we discussed about how veterans can make college work for them?
Yeah, I think we hit all of the highlights here. A really good talk, Tyler, and thank you for having me on and really appreciate it and love talking about this topic. It's one of my favorite topics. So happy to do it anytime.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. This has been Shift, a college admissions podcast for a changing world, hosted by Tyler from Achievable with Casey Vaughan from Northeastern. And you can get a free trial of Achievable's ACT and CLT courses by going to achievable.me and use the code podcast to get 10% off at checkout.